Welcome to Dimensional Shift, where we explore and actively deprogram ourselves, seek the truth of reality through expanding our perceptions, and focus on full remembrance of our true selves. As we begin to connect to our true selves, we will also see the truth of this illusory reality and the way it controls us through our manipulated perceptions. As soon as we fully remember our true selves, we will also see the enemy for what it is and how to rebalance the system by freeing ourselves and assisting others to do the same, creating a domino effect into the evolution of human consciousness. Welcome back, shifters. If you follow me on Reddit, this is a post I made over the weekend. They got a lot of good reception, and I'm just going to share it here with you to get your thoughts as well and get you thinking about some of the things that are happening around us. The title of the post is "They Are Starving Us." Throughout the ages, we have been slowly and systematically removed and separated from our connection to Source. This has been by design through our biology and relationships, and the primary motivation is to make us fill the void with the machinations of the system. When we are cut off from Source, our divine vital energy, we become starved energetically. Our connection to Source allows us to channel the energy we need to sustain ourselves, our bodies, our minds, and our subtle bodies. When we are disconnected, we must fuel ourselves through outside means. These outside means are found through the matrix: food, parasitic energy exchanges, substances, shopping, social media, sex, and much more have become forces that drive our lives. Most of these, if you've noticed, are biological drives that have been, over the centuries, programmed and conditioned us into wanting more, and this is easily done through the susceptibility of the body and mind. Sugar is more addictive than most street drugs, and yet look at what they ply us with, especially children. In the 70s and 80s, there was a huge push for low-fat and low-calorie everything. But how do you make food palatable without fat? You add sugar. And in the 2000s, when people began to realize that sugar was terrible for you, what did they do? They introduced hyper-sweet sugar products that caused the same type of addiction without the caloric load, causing your body to never feel satisfied and always craving more. Then there was the introduction of a wheat-heavy diet. This began back in the cradle of civilization in Mesopotamia when we became cultivators instead of hunter-gatherers. Growing crops allowed us to store for the winter, but there's a reason they call bread and other wheat products starvation food. It will keep you alive, yes, but it has almost no nutrition and was, in the long run, detrimental. Today, most bread products are made from overprocessed flour, like white bread, which metabolizes even more quickly than natural wheat or grain bread, and with so much added sugar, I don't see how they can call it a savory bread. In another sphere, before a farmer sends cattle to slaughter for meat, they fatten them up with a diet that is primarily corn. The ratio of macronutrients, carbs, proteins, and fats is the same as what the FDA has recommended for Americans to eat the past 40 years. A few changes have been made recently, but nothing akin to the diet we actually need to be eating. This is by design. It's called SAD, Standard American Diet, for a reason. Could they be any more obvious? The other aspect of this is the idea of eating meat. While I'm not pro-vegetarian or pro-vegan, more on that in a bit, the idea of eating meat, as well as plants, such as vegetables and fruits, has a more sinister concept behind it than many are willing to look at. The whole idea of getting us to eat flesh, en masse, and to farm it the way we do is to condition us to become like them. So at some point they can shrug and say, "What's the difference? You do it to cows, pigs, chicken, fish." The same idea applies to plants, though most don't see plants as sentient or have feelings. They certainly do, and it's just another example of leading us to prey on other life forms. This is for the larger agenda of leading us to become like them. The archons can't reproduce the same way we do, and so they have to turn us into them, multiplying their numbers at the same time reducing the chance that you will wake up and become resistant to them. Another part of this process has been to acidify our bodies as much as possible, which promotes disease. It's illegal in many places to gather your own water in barrels, and yet our tap water is contaminated with things that are slowly deteriorating our health, not to mention the spiritual implications of contaminants that calcify our pineal gland. Drinking alkaline water is a step in the right direction. You can buy bottles of it or buy a solution to add to your drinking water. This will help heal your body and promote health and vitality. The foods that are marketed to us also contribute to disease. Soda is highly addictive and acidic and causes osteoporosis, among other things. Candy is primarily sugar with color and flavor. I can't stand eating candy anymore because the pure and highly concentrated sugar makes me ill and hurts my teeth. Conditioning us to be like them is also demonstrated by parasitic energy exchanges. The more we become entrenched in an identity, the more we become opposed to the opposite identity, which is just the same identity on the spectrum according to the law of polarity. I am white, you are black. I am poor, you are rich. I am straight, you are gay. The list goes on and on. Add trauma into the mix, because trauma is a major key to this type of programming, and you have people who will feel powerless, and so take power where they can get it, even in detrimental or harmful ways. For example, someone who is gay may have been sexually abused as a child. As they grow up, they become angry and bitter about what they went through. They react to the experience as they came out and eventually create a pro-gay, seemingly self-affirming identity that is vehemently anti-straight, because that is the other end of the duality. This fuels the apparent division between us all, of which there is actually none. According to the law of polarity, they are all on the same spectrum. At what point on the spectrum do you say, I am straight? And at what point do you say, I am gay? There is no absolute point, only subjective experience. And so these traumatic experiences create division, which allows the powers that be to keep us divided and conquered. Unified, loving, and standing together, we would be a force to be reckoned with. But as long as we're pointing the finger at each other, we will never point the finger at those who have actually caused the problems to begin with. Going back to parasitic energy exchanges, when we are cut off from source and our identity is fractured through trauma, the only way we can sustain our etheric energy needs is by becoming psychic vampires ourselves. We look to others for validation and identity confirmation. We look to those who oppose us to make them wrong and take away their power, or we may become aggressive and angry, taking power away by force. This, again, is to condition us to become like them. When we do this, we are, in effect, feeding off of someone else's loosh that we have purposefully evoked. This is no different, though perhaps on a different scale, than the powers that be manipulating our emotions through the media, orchestrated events, or in more covert ways. Social media is rife with these types of parasitic interactions, and it's truly malicious. Because of the loosh providing interactions plus the dopamine hit when we receive the loosh, it makes for an intoxicating, addictive cocktail. On top of that, it steals hours of our days, plus the attentions we provide it, which they mine to manifest the reality they want instead of the one we want. What happens after scrolling for a few hours? We become fatigued, providing loosh to others, plus giving away our mental energy through attention, not to mention the dopamine oversaturation and then depletion. After we become fatigued, we may become irritable or emotional, more susceptible to other kinds of attacks such as triggers, perceived relationship issues or miscommunications, or simply imbalance and dysregulation. While any of these can be characterized as addiction, one of the most sinister addictions is, of course, substance abuse. The reason I say most sinister is that substances have a compound effect on your perceptions and, therefore, your life. When you use a substance, not only are you/do you become addicted at some point, but you are also lowering your defenses, which allow the powers that be to more fully control and manipulate you, and, by extension, others. Alcohol is called spirits for a reason. We black out during heavy drug use for a reason. We do and say things out of character for a reason. Just as social media and sugar do, we eventually get dopamine oversaturation and depletion, and later withdrawal. This is what keeps us returning to the substance. But again, the agenda behind this is to keep us searching outside ourselves for the solution. Rather than turn inward and learn who we truly are, find the solutions to our problems, experience life as it's meant to be experienced, we seek external sources, and what we find is a comforting yet hollow half-reality that keeps us trapped in our own minds. Once you experience a connection to your true self, the substances pale in comparison. There is a saying that an addict is a mystic who doesn't know how to connect to their true nature, and so seeks these experiences the only way they have figured out how, through substances. From my extensive personal experience, this is 100% true. And this too is by design. The powers that be have systematically cut us off from source, and we have lost the way back, causing us to experience what we can through outside means. And it truly is just a hollow echo of what an experience with source is like. Then there is sex. While sex itself isn't bad, the rise of rampant free pornography has caused a host of problems. Not only can you be compromised or even possessed by entities by watching porn, just by watching you consent to being caught in their web. It again goes back to dopamine depletion. Once the normal porno doesn't satisfy you anymore, you gradually seek out kinkier and more base pornography until you find yourself seeking completely immoral things. Not to sound like a broken record, but this is, again, a trap they have laid to lead you down the path of becoming like them. Compromising your morality is an important key because they can come back and say, well, you did it too. There is also the idea that pornography and hypersexuality reduce the vitality of a person in an energetic way, causing them to become psychic vampires, either in the sexual act or outside of it. It can mess with your hormones as well. There are multiple studies of how hypersexuality or masturbating regularly, especially in men, reduces testosterone. This is an important key. Not only are you less likely to be able to procreate when it's time, but your overall drive and willpower are compromised, making it harder for you to summon the will to fight back against the system. Again, by design. Most other matrix-based sources we use are derived from money. The idea that we need money to buy food, buy a car, buy a house, buy clothes, buy enjoyable experiences is completely contrived and meant to keep us in our place, seeking something that is truly unimportant. There are two people who don't worry about money. Those who have money and those who follow their intuition and trust that Source will always provide for them. The idea of meritocracy, or those who have money deserve it because they've worked for it, and if you want it you should work harder, has so thoroughly permeated our society that we systematically blame poor people for what they experience, telling them to just work harder. Not only that, but it keeps those who have money, the elite, in power because they must deserve it. It's also very much a divisive tactic. When the poor blame other poor, think poor farmers blaming poor illegal immigrants for stealing their jobs, the finger never gets pointed to the 1% who own over 50%, a conservative estimate, of the world's wealth. The agenda here is that if you do things right, scratch the right backs, give the right favors, you may get into the good boys club, allowing you the wealth and prestige so many desire, but at the cost of your morality and sometimes your very soul. Again, pushing you toward becoming like them, a parasite. There is, of course, a solution, a very simple, but not always easy solution to combating these outside forces that strive to pull us in every day. That solution is connection to Source. When we work diligently to connect to Source, true self, God, universe, whatever name you'd prefer to give, the that which is, the all, we naturally rejuvenate ourselves and the need for external energy sources begins to fall away. In my own experience, as soon as I began connecting, my need for food has almost disappeared. I drink a lot of alkaline water throughout the day, sometimes start the day with a cup of coffee, and eat one meal. I've lost a significant amount of weight, primarily because the food pales in comparison to the energy and vitality I receive when I connect. This is what they want. They want us to be reliant on them, seeking external sources to fill the void, but the void is insatiable because it is like trying to fill a gas tank with milk. It may fill the tank for a while, but the engine won't run properly, if at all. and you'll still need gas. In the end, there will be 3 types of people that come out during the next few years. Those who join the Archons become parasites like them, furthering their agendas. Those who stay hypnotized and become transhuman mind-slave battery packs lost in a digital world forever. And those who refuse to submit, either retreat from the main portion of the world or are hunted down and silenced, but find themselves free from the reincarnation trap because they've put in the work to find their true nature, their true connection to Source. The goal is, of course, to be in the 3rd category and work toward freeing as many as possible from the 2nd category. But as we know from the Matrix, many aren't ready or willing to be unplugged. Some will be lost. But the choice is yours. Will you let them condition you into becoming like them? Will you stay with the masses and become a mind-slave battery pack? Or will you work like hell to free yourself from any and all conditioning, programming, triggers, and master your mind, emotions, body, and subtle body, the whole human complex, so that you will walk away free? Master yourself, or someone else will. If you found this episode helpful or insightful, please share it with a friend and leave a review or comment. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I host twice weekly open discussions on the podcast topic on our Discord server. If you'd like to join, head to dimensionalshifter.com/Discord. If you're on Reddit, come join the subreddit r/dimensionalshifters or send me a DM. My username is dimensionalshifter. Keep deprogramming, keep connecting, keep listening to your intuition. This is it. This is what we've been searching for our whole lives. Connection to our true selves.